Welcome to another episode of the Vital MX post-race show, and they say that the series starts in Daytona, but has it just ended in Indianapolis? We'll get into that and so much more on this episode. Of course, we had the 250 SX East-West Showdown to get into as well, so that's very, very exciting. And all in all, this should be an action-packed episode. We are able to pack in the action thanks to Decal Works, Yamaha Motor USA, Yoshimura, Motorex, and Fox Racing. So thank you to all of them for their support and love for this podcast. It is truly much appreciated. I'm your host, Lewis Phillips, as per, joined by Michael Lindsay. Hello.
Hello.
How is life and general stuff?
I'm doing a lot better than you. I'm not bleeding.
Yeah, I don't know where this is coming from. Literally, just if you're watching this on video, 5 minutes before we started recording, my lip just started bleeding and I can't stop it. So I don't really know what to do to move on.
I'll give you props for at least for the commitment. Even the bleeding won't stop you from talking about the race.
I don't think that would have been an excuse, to be honest. I think if I'd said to you, we're not doing this because I'm bleeding, you probably would have not been so accepting of that reason. But anyway.
You're not calling... I'm not an accepting person? Jesus.
Well, I don't know if it's really an accepting reason generally. But anyway. I almost feel like we should start with 250s, but that would be incorrect, wouldn't it?
Now, I mean, from a racing standpoint, yes, but the 450s, I mean, still the conversation at the top of the field is interesting. To your point, it may seem like a bit of an exaggeration, but is Indy going to go down at the end of this championship as the moment where you knew what was actually going to happen?
It was certainly... If Cooper Webb wins this championship, then Indy is where he stamped it, because that wasn't a Cooper Webb style win. He led every lap. He was the fastest guy. He was dominant, commanding, etc., 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 whatever adjective you want to put on it, he was that. Whereas obviously other rounds like Arlington, Chase was the fastest, and Detroit, Chase was coming from the back. So like there was always this cloud of, not speculation, but there was a discussion to be had, whereas this is very open and shut of Cooper Webb was the best guy and we'll move on with life. It really is that simple, which is great for Webb. Clearly, it's all trending in the right direction.
Now, it's just overall, I was even going through the sector times. I mean, your point fastest, I believe he had the fastest single lap time, which was the second lap, but sector times were amazing. He was, behind Malcolm, the best guy in the whoops, consistently good in the whoops. And God, I also didn't realize, I mean, it's Indy. Of course, the track deteriorates. Looking at the lap times, like how much everybody was falling off at the end. Coop kept that minimal compared to most of his competition. But one thing that really stood out to me, Jesus, they did 25 laps on that track last night.
Also worth noting that Cooper Webb's win was Yamaha's 189th in the Premier class of Supercross. So well done to Yamaha, our sponsors of this podcast, of course. Closing in on number 200. They won't get there this year because there isn't that many races to go. But I would bet that number 200 lies in the 2026 season somewhere.
What, again, when you look at, I mean, Webb's performance is just straight up easy to comment on. Like you said, just an absolutely dominant performance from him. Were you surprised, though? Because, again, he's never, I believe he's never checked the box in Indy, correct?
No, he nor Chase had not won there. So
no matter what, we were getting a first-time winner. But it's already moving to again, all the applause goes to Webb, but moving to the second person in this conversation, we're talking about the title fight after, weeks of whether it's errors, mistakes, things that kept him from performing with Chase. I think a lot of us were expecting, okay, the speed's there. We had talked about since the last issues, like, we kind of believe that Chase is the kind of guy, no matter what, that's going to show up and give it his all. And not to say he didn't give it his all, but always be the fastest guy. It just kind of wasn't there last night. And is that more, I think you've said before, like one of the least concerning things with Chase is the fact that he can just rebound the next weekend. Was that more concerning than any ride you've seen this year?
Not so much concerning more than any ride. No, because that puts the emphasis on the riding. Concerning as an overall package, yes. But not even really concerning, because in the same way that when he's the fastest, you kind of have that to fall back on. This is just like so far in the direction of, yeah, Cooper Webb was better. So like there's almost no element to unpack there, because it is so clear cut and there is no blurred line. There is no, well, what about this? Well, if Chase wasn't doing this, Chase was just not as good as Cooper Webb. In a way, perhaps that is refreshing and a little bit of not a wake-up call, but maybe a wake-up call. I don't know. But I'll tell you this, the vibe with Chase seems to be quite, maybe you'd say relief that this little period is over. I think the weekend off, goes without saying, is going to be massive with Chase, but he is definitely well aware of the fact that he tends to come on strong after the break. I think he's really got it in his head that weekend off and then it's my time to shine. Which is rare, I'd say, because I feel like often riders don't really put stock in their own little stats like that. They tend to either not be aware of them at all or just kind of shrug them off and be like, whatever. But Chase really seems to have bought into this concept that, yeah, after the break is his time. He mentioned it on press day to everyone. He mentioned it in the KTM Like, we are buying in to the 8 race run after the break.
Which isn't a bad thing. I mean, from the sense of, we've said before, like, who's the most likely guy in this group to go on a streak, to go on a pole, be Chase. But correct me if I'm wrong, what's your magic number for points that concerns
13.
you? 13. So we're at 15 now. I mean, we agreed on this last week. The chance of seeing Webb off the podium in the final 8 races seems fairly low, minus something crazy happen. Like, 15 points isn't a lot, but it still ends up adding up to a lot when your competition can probably just get second. Not easily, but I mean, the way Webb is performing right now, he can continue to stamp out second places when you're chasing, even if you are pulling win after win. So the 15 points in one hand is not that big, but in the other hand right now, it feels like a little bit of a hump to get over.
I put it this way, if Chase wins this title now, he will have to do... It will be in a spectacular fashion where he has torn off win after win after win and just blazed his way to the front. We're at that stage now. It's not going to be like, yeah, he finished second and then he was first. There has to be action now for him to win this championship. But this will either really help or really hurt his situation. We are now done with covered stadiums. So the likelihood of a mudder or 2 is very high. So that will inevitably turn up the results a little bit. So perhaps that means that this gap is irrelevant. And also, muddier, softer conditions, that will help guys like AP get in the mix, I would say. Maybe a few others, Barsha, So that's the positive side of it. But the flip side, the negative side, if you want to go that way, is Chase could also be caught out by those conditions just as much as anyone else. So you really don't know. I guess that's why we run the races. But yeah, not a banner weekend for Chase, I would say. Yeah.
Although,
and I didn't want to say this, but it's just come to me, and I've said although now, so I will say it. I get a lot of shit on this podcast, right?
I think we all get a lot of shit in general.
Okay, I get a lot of shit because everyone thinks that whatever I say about Chase is just blind. I don't know what they think it is. So I interviewed Chase on press day, asked him very boring, generic questions. Like, there was nothing. It wasn't a great interview from my side. Like, just boring. But him talking back to me, it was as if I was listening to this podcast, because he literally recited what I've been saying on this podcast over the weeks. And in my head, literally while he's talking, in my head, I'm going, I don't know what to do, because clearly my analysis was quite spot on if the rider is analysing it exactly the same way. But...
Or Chase listens to this and repeats what you say.
Well, the main thing that stood out is he was like, yeah, it's weird. Like, I'm not freaking out because if you look at each race, it's so different in what the mistake was that there's not a trend here. And in my head, I was like, wait, hold on. I literally raised that twice now. But anyway, yeah, it just stood out to me as wild. Last week, we discussed Justin Cooper and his position as best of the rest. And Although it was very Justin Cooper, it wasn't spectacular, it wasn't incredible, it wasn't anything to write home about. It was just a steady, solid second place. Yamaha's first 1-2 of the season. Yeah, maybe Justin Cooper can get a win here?
I mean, he seems like the most prone to be the most likely if something happens with a Webb Sexton situation. I do a little bit like, I don't know, I agree with you in one sense, like steady, but I was also at least, we've talked about on prior pods, sometimes me and Jay Coop with the biggest names, like they kept talking about on the broadcast about how they've talked to him and he's like, oh, he feels like he gets pushed around harder by the big guys, this or that, where a lot of times my counter is some of the biggest names, he doesn't look like he puts up a fight. Like against Barsha, at least, very, very aggressive, not in a rough standpoint, aggressive, just making the move happen, getting away from him, a lot of emphasis on getting it done. I did think certain qualities of Jay Coop's ride were a little bit better than usual. Definitely interesting because going in, partway through the main into the early portion, I was like, okay, this is going to be a banner night for Barsha. He's going to be the talking point of the most impressive ride for his, what's been seen of him lately. And he still, don't get me wrong, had a great night. And then Jay Coop just kind of stormed past him. And I was like, never mind. This is Jay Coop's night.
I do feel like Jay Coop could do something special here. And this, although, if you want to play the negative side, this is his second 450 podium. Both of those have been second place finishes. It does feel as though he needs to capitalize on this and do something with it, just to kind of cement the fact that this isn't just a flash in the pan and he can take it moving forward. But this also sends a message to Star, I think. Like, Jay Coop helped Webb in the championship chase. Jay Coop got in there. This is kind of what Star have wanted from Jay Coop. And he's in that flux of continuous one-year deals. It feels as though, at best, he may get another one-year deal for 2026. This sends... I don't know. This reinforces what Jay Coop is capable of, which, as dumb as it sounds, or as obvious as it sounds, that is quite a critical thing for him to do.
Yeah. We talked about it a little bit on last week's pod. We've talked about before, me and you think around this time last year, we're kind of championing, who should be looking at him, what kind of investment could be made into him, and still following off last week. Same thing. I mean, right now, what he's performing at, especially if he can get a win in the next couple of races, if he could do it. I mean, this really signals to, again, if you're Monster Energy Kawasaki, is this a perfect guy to bring over to place with Prado? Even interesting where KTM has had like that kind of 1 year thing forever with Aaron as being a supporting cast member to whoever the top dog is, whether it was Chase or Webb. Like Jay Coop can be that, but again, he's showing some qualities where he could be. There's room for improvement. There's a lot of guys in these conversations that have contracts up. Anderson, Stewart, Barsha, that are way up there on age. They are performing insanely well for their age, first off, and the staying power of the current class is unlike anything we've ever seen before. However, Father Time is ticking, the door is about to close, and Jay Coop is performing as well as the guys we're having in this conversation, but there's still like the runway's there. Like, okay, is there more out of him? And that makes me wonder what teams are weighing up, because again, I just see like, okay, he's probably cheaper than some of these guys that have had this staying power and have commanded a big salary at one point, even though they've probably slipped down the pecking order. But in the same breath, like, I don't know. I'm just a fan of the idea of giving him somebody being more than a 1 year deal with him and putting some emphasis into him and making him kind of their guy and seeing what happens.
Major bike change for Jay Coop after first practice. Like everyone else in the field, he was just looking for more stability, more feel in the ruts as the track got worse. So nothing too surprising, but he did say it was quite a significant change. Let me ask you this. This relates to the Coopers. Yamaha haven't won more than 7 450 main events in a season since 2009, which was 12 with James Stewart. They're not going to hit 12. I think that's impossible, actually. But they are at 4 now, and there are 8 rounds to go. So can Yamaha move past the magic 7 number for the first time since 2009?
I mean, this sounds like such a cop-out. That's a question for Chase Sexton.
I would say definitely. Like Webb winning half the races Webb will win half the races, won't he?
Yeah, I think so. We have 8 remaining. I mean, I see Webb getting us to that magic 7 because one of them's it. Like he'll get, I would suspect 3 more. I could see, because if we're talking about 8, like if Chase does go on a run, Chase needs to win more than Webb to try to pull this back in, and that's what I'm hoping for, and that's what I'm hoping for her storyline. So my magic number is Chase gets 4 to 5 wins to finish this out. Coop gets 3. Maybe Jay Coop could squeak one in there. So I either say they get to 7 or they break it by just 1.
Yeah, I guess if I say Webb will definitely win 4, that will be half of the remaining rounds, and that should, in essence, as long as there isn't a severe issue at one of the other races, secure him the title. So maybe it isn't that much of a foregone conclusion, or maybe it is. Maybe this thing is over. Maybe, like I said off the top, Indianapolis ended the championship.
It's my freedom. It's my fix. It's the endless pursuit of trying to find that flow.
Let me throw you one more here on Webb. The number 3 getting the 3rd title. If he keeps trending this direction, gets it. There's been bigger totals in Supercross, of course, but 3 to me is a fairly magic number. The fact that Tomac has on to Reed and Stewart, 2 of the most legendary in the sport, are stuck on the 2. So that kind of puts Webb into a unique position to do it with a decent gap between the 1st and the 3rd final one. Again, you look at like Reed and Stewart that got 2 fairly early in their careers and not back-to-back years like Cooper Webb, but for him to pull it out after a gap, how much, some people will argue, oh, look at the amount of people that are hurt, the usual asterisk bull crap will come up. Is this the most impressive title for Webb of the 3, even with some of the injuries, the fact that, sort of having to continue to reinvent yourself, to continue to push yourself, and again, getting that magic 3 when I talk about some of those other guys, some of those people we hold in such high regard, and they, Cooper does it. They didn't.
I wouldn't say it would be that much more impressive, because his championship winning years were very commanding and straight up. It's not like one of those was just everyone got injured and then he just took it, So I think they all have their own merit, but yes, the number 3 would be quite poignant. But equally, I would be equally not amazed, intrigued to see Cooper Webb go to 3 and surpass, like you say, James, Chad, etc., etc. But in the same breath, it would be just as weird or odd for me to digest for Chase to win this and go in the same category as Chad and James this early in his career. Both of those are kind of exactly the same feel to me. Like, both feel a little bit like, oh, wow, we're there kind of thing.
Yeah.
That would be, because Chad, if Chase does win this one, then I feel like we all presume he's going to win more. Yeah. Right? So then that really opens the door for Chase to go for even maybe past RV and Dungey.
Yeah, and that's saying Chase still has a lot of runway. Not that Webb's leaving anytime soon. Like, again, we talk about the age of your Anderson, Stewart, Barsha, those guys, Tomac. Like, Webb is still a decent bit younger. He can go a lot longer. Is it... I'm going to fall in the category of doubting Webb, and I'm not trying to, but it's kind of the thing of like, okay, if Webb wins this, there's kind of that feeling of like, okay, with Jet coming back and continuing to build, and eventually Deegan coming in, eventually, and kind of the era of Chase, just the next generation under him, it starts to get into a thinner margin for like Webb to win titles after this. So I feel like the 3rd title for him in the conversation is impressive because, there might not be another one after that. And that's fine. Like, it would still put him in such an impressive group, above an impressive group in terms of titles even. If Chase wins it, yes, it puts him in a unique conversation of same as Chad James, but he's going to surpass it. Like, there just seems like such a low chance he won't add more to his plate. Yeah,
it's definitely a weird position to be in where both of the title favourites, or 2 of the contenders, could potentially hit somewhat of a milestone with a championship. But I guess that just is a foregone conclusion because these championships are quite important. obviously. Justin Barcia was fourth, his best ride of the season. His first whole shot in who knows? Really, who knows? I can't remember the last time I saw Justin Barcia whole shot at all. Not even the vaguest memory. But although he was a little bit bummed not to podium, as you would expect, J. Coop just riding away from him would have been a tough pill to swallow. This was definitely a step in the right direction. So he was positive and very upbeat after the race, I would say. And AP equally, Daytona was great, but that may be AP's best ride of the season. He was really, really good. And considering that before Daytona he hadn't cracked the top 5, and now he's had a top 5 with a crash even, that kind of underlines just how good he was. As I said, we're going now to venues that could potentially favour him. So will you start looking at AP more, considering him more, putting more emphasis on what he could do moving forward? Or is he still in just that invisible second tier to you?
A little bit. It's interesting thinking about wingmen in the championship. Like right now, Justin Cooper looks poised to potentially actually have an impact on the championship as Webb's teammate, where with Plessinger, I don't know if I'm quite there yet. You know what I mean? As Chase's, like, is there enough opportunity here, or is Aaron performing well enough that he actually could? Can he? Yes, he could be an accessory to this championship to Chase's run. Will he? I don't know. I don't know for sure if I can say he will get in there and get involved and, move a point or two here or there, where, like I said, with J. Coop, we're already seeing that, and it seems to be trending that way. I am super impressed with Plessinger's comeback, though, in the sense of, I said it for the couple pods for this, like even when I'm at Daytona, it was just such a big changeover. I thought it would take longer. It's just weird to see somebody in a weird lull when they're getting 10ths and 12ths and different things like that. And yeah, we've had some injuries, but usually you don't see somebody just snap back to life like that. It's more of a slow crawl. Like Barcia's has been more of a slow crawl to where he is now. It's been a position better each week, a better race, a better this, where all of a sudden Plessinger's just took a leap in the middle. So now again, I don't know if I can sit here and go, he's going to take another leap to jump in there, but F it, I'm probably wrong.
Yeah, it is weird when you think about how good AP was last year. Like, it is a bit of a curious case. And I feel like you can make an argument for him being anywhere in the top 10. But it can't be ignored that the venues coming up should, and probably will, favour him. But speaking of Aaron Plessinger and Red Bull KTM Factory Racing, they rely on Decal Works to look as brilliant as they do every single week. And you can too if you head to decalmx.com. Customizable bike graphics, replacement bike plastics. Look however you want to look, thanks to Decal Works. There are no restrictions, and you can let your creativity run wild. Let your bike truly represent who you are and what you like, thanks to Decal Works. So I recommend you head. Again, that's decalmx.com. Head over there and have a look at all there is to offer. All plastic orders ship same day. So even that, quite impressive.
I know it's been a lull of a racing night for Chase Sexton when the Decal Works read.
I'm trying to just give the people what they want. Like, people take it too seriously, so I'm just trying to. I'm trying to change it up each week so we don't end up in a vortex of repetitiveness. Malcolm Stewart is having, first of all, no one's going to know what I'm talking about, but on the new results that we have this year, Malcolm Stewart's best lap is just 50.
A 50.
I've only just realised that. That's weird. But
we don't have 50.000 or 001. It's just 50.
Malcolm Stewart, press day, by the way, great interview with Malcolm Stewart. He won best interview on press day. Very funny. He said to me that he's getting better and better with starts, and I kind of appropriately, I think, replied with, "You've been telling me that for years, so when are we actually going to figure this out?" I said, like, 2029? Are we going to get a whole shot? And he said, "No, I'm not going to be around then." And I was like, it's kind of my point. Like, we might want to speed up this progress. But he lent into it quite funnily. It was an enjoyable Malcolm Stewart interview.
That man will definitely be sitting on a boat just fishing at that point. He will not be with us racing.
All I have to say about Malcolm is it was a very Malcolm ride. Apart from Tampa, I feel like we're in this pattern of super fast in practice. I bet if you look, he's been faster in more free practices than anyone. Yep. Super fast in practice, good heat race, the main event is the worst part of the day. I feel like that pattern in some form has existed pretty much every race this year, and I don't really know what to put it down to. Certainly since his win in Tampa, that has happened every single week, which is bizarre.
I hate to say it, it kind of reminds me almost like his original 450 pattern when he was doing his own program. You remember on the Suzuki, how good he was, practice, how could he be in a heat race, and then the main would be, And it was kind of this continuous, okay, if Malcolm can bring what he has in practice, what if he can bring what he has in the heat race? It's tough to see a rider perform so well in the heat and not put a lot of stock into what that means for a main event. And Malcolm's in a weird boat there where, yeah, I feel like that. I see him win a heat. And I hate to say it, he got his first win this year. I see him win a heat race. I don't instantly go to, wow, he's going to race for a win tonight. Many other riders, you feel like that. Right now, Malcolm's not in that position or hasn't trended that way.
Equally perplexing to see that since his win, he's gone 4.966. I think everyone would have expected that win to catapult him to a degree, and in Detroit, it did somewhat with a fourth, but he's not been in the top 5 since Detroit. So I think that jumps off the page a little bit, as does Ken Roczen's 7th. And honestly, he didn't go down in turn 1, but he got caught up in Anderson's bike, and he was flying to begin with.
The first 4 or 5 laps was insane, and I don't know if he just straight up, I hate to say the word, blew his load, but just...
Yeah, I think he did. I think he hit a wall, but I don't know if that wall was Malcolm, because I think it was when he got to Malcolm, he kind of got stuck there, and I don't know if it was a classic example of a rider getting stuck in another rider's pace and then just kind of getting lost a little bit.
The pace definitely settled on him. What was weird is he gets to Malcolm, pace goes away. But then Malcolm, I'd have to go back and look at the lap charts. I believe Malcolm made passes and kind of would gap him and have a person or two. Like Malcolm picked it up, got some positions, and it wasn't like Kenny just went with him on every single move. Kenny actually got such a lull of his pace, it would take him a little bit to, like, the results. It's like, okay, Kenny finishes behind Malcolm. We saw that. Maybe they were around 10th when he hit him and kind of hit the wall. But that wasn't the story in the middle, per se. Like Malcolm, I remember, kept passing people, and it would take Kenny a little bit to get back to the rear of him in a sense. I mean, actually, by the sense of the rear of him, he was over 10 seconds. Or no. Yeah, he was, like 9.5 seconds down on Malcolm at the end. He wasn't exactly right behind Malcolm, just chasing him through these people.
I'm happy to now sit here and say that Ken Roczen is not winning this championship.
Yeah, I think that 10% statistic I have from last week's gone.
Yeah, it's I think he's 26 down now, and yeah, you can't really do much with that, especially against Cooper Webb. Even Chase's 15 seems quite mountainous, so 26 is exceptional. Do
you feel like from seeing him again, I feel like himself, his team, Larry Dustin, all of them have had such a excited demeanor about them after the races, not that it still hasn't been a banner year for them in a sense, but kind of like that belief. Do you feel like that disappeared last night? Did you, like we sit here saying like, yeah, it's probably, chances it's over at this point, the title run, but seeing their demeanor, like kind of like, yep, that's it. Like, let's just race for a win, another win or something like that.
Well, this is the story to me now. Will Roczen end up with one win for the 3rd year in succession, or will he actually get another one? It would be so weird for him to have one win across 3 years. That would be bizarre almost, but that feels now like the direction that we're trending in.
Is it weird? Like on one hand, Kenny talks about enjoying the wins so much more. Everybody, like Ken Roczen winning is such a fun storyline. Watching the way he takes it, watching the way his whole team responds to it, everything. However, if it goes 3 years in a row of one win with the HEP team, etc., does it feel like he's stuck in a little bit of a rut? And is that rut okay? I mean, there is stuff on the horizon. There is a lot of conversation about him with Ducati, but there's also a lot of conversation that Ducati might not be ready for A1 next year. They may hold off. If that's the case, Kenny stays another year. Are we? This is gonna. Again, I'm not trying to talk down on the current situation. Are we wasting some of the best of Kenny we've seen now? Like, do you know what I mean? There's a part of me that wants to see some change in him get out of the rut, because he has been so phenomenal at points, and the speed is so good at the beginning of the races. There's so many good qualities where I'm like, I want to see Ken have more opportunities than what he has right now.
I think, leaning on what you said about wasting one of the best Ken Roczens we've seen, then yes, certainly they will look back on this season, or Kenny will look back on this season and probably see this as maybe his best shot, or one of his best shots. Obviously, talking post-arm injury, because before is a whole different ball game. So there is that. But then also, I also just go to the fact that we're just lucky and thankful to have Ken Roczen here at this stage. Like I think we've said it a few times. When he first signed with Hep and he was in that weird tryout phase with all of these manufacturers, the common consensus was that it was going to be his final year, or maybe just maybe he would race in 2024 if he was happy enough. I don't think anyone would have bet on him racing in 2025. So there is always that element. This is almost like a bonus. And I almost wonder if that's why he's in such a good mood, and he was so relaxed through the first half of the year, and so not in his head. He even commented that was a notable difference in himself. He wasn't overthinking, he wasn't overanalyzing, and maybe just because he saw it as a bonus too. So maybe that makes it all easier to swallow.
I will say there's a potential really, I feel like, fun storyline with Kenny, going down the road. If he sticks around for another 3-4 years, again, I'm not, man, I feel like I'm just trying to dig a grave on the Hep Suzuki thing, but I'm not. It's not as bad a situation, but again, we all expect him to likely move to a Ducati program down the road. Another chapter of his career, I think, is going to be interesting. Again, just super thankful we have him and get to enjoy Kenny and the person he is, and his racing and his racecraft and everything. It's going to be interesting looking back at his career from the KTM to the early part of Yamaha Honda, the massive injury, to coming to Hep, wondering, how much longer he'd stick around, and then potentially going to another program, and again, kind of going with the generation below him and still racing them, Jet and Chase and etc., and seeing if maybe he can, have another banner year like this year. Could we see another best of Ken Roczen 2-3 years down the road again?
Well, I think 2-3 years down the road is quite optimistic. That's far away. That's very far away.
I mean, again, I'm just looking at, I don't count anything out anymore with staying power. I mean, just go through the ages. Like, the fact that we still have Anderson, Stewart, Barsha, Tomac just baffles my mind more and more every year. I'm like, and the fact that none of those guys really, you haven't really talked about Anderson, Barsha, Tomac, none of them are talking about ending. The closer it gets to the end, as they'll say, like Tomac said to me, the closer it gets to the end, the harder it gets to quit. Every year it doesn't get easier, and I kind of again, Kenny's situation, I'd like to ask him the same question. Is it, compared to a couple years ago, are we getting closer to being able to say it, or does it get harder to think about and harder to talk about?
It does feel like everyone has stopped talking to everyone about retirement, bar Tomac. But Tomac does that to himself by just constantly making announcements of one more year. Moving on to Ferrandis in 8th. After the race, he confirmed that he has not got the Honda HRC fill-in ride, but he will get some parts, which, although a nice gesture, he didn't exactly seem thrilled with that consolation prize. But that then means that Dean Wilson will get the Honda HRC fill-in ride, but from what I hear, he won't be in Birmingham, so I don't know when it will start. But it does sound like that is still happening, and it will be Dean Wilson. I think a few people, myself included, started to wonder if they were even going to have a fill-in rider, because it went quiet, we're getting later in the year, but I think Dean is in, so there is that.
I know talking some of the way up on Dylan's decision was the fact, of course, the plan is Hunter will be back for Pro Motocross. Jet's a little more of a question mark. You put Dylan on the bike, then you have to return him. And then becomes question about bike setup, differences. So their opt has been more like, let's just make your current program better. So I know transmission is amongst one of the items he's getting. Some talk of some other chassis items and stuff like that. But yeah, Dino to finish out SX. Hunter back for Pro Motocross. Jet still question mark.
Also, speaking of Hunter and Jet, a lot of Hunter and Jet time this weekend. A lot of Hunter and Jet time. They were both there for their VIP experience. and they were both just sat in a press box for like an hour and a half, just like regular people. So what a nice time that was. Jumping down, I'm just going to ask you this before we move on from 450s. What do you do or think or say about the Jason Anderson situation? Where, by all accounts, it seems like he is just basically checked out.
It's on one hand, it's not the most shocking thing. We've seen stuff like this from Jason, but in a contract year, it seems a little shocking. I hate to put that label on Jason, but it usually seems the contract year there's a better performance in mind. I don't know. It's one of those situations where knowing the resources Cowie has, knowing the resources Jason has around him, as many years as he's been at it, I'm very lost. I don't know how we've trended to this direction. And again, if there's something else going on, if there's an injury, an illness, please admit it. Like, because otherwise I'm just sitting here baffled and pretty much asking if you're just riding around at this point.
I think I'm at the point where if Kawasaki re-sign him for next year, I'm going to raise an eyebrow at what the deal is there. Like what the motivation is, what they think they're getting. Kawasaki has made some perplexing choices in the past, mainly more so 250-wise, but I would definitely be curious if he gets re-upped, which it sounds like he might.
Again, lull of choices in a sense. This continues to go back to the don't get me wrong, Jason is a prior 450 Supercross champion. He has won races in a fairly recent amount of years. However, when a rider like this trends this direction, age, everything, you think it would be a lot easier for a team to make a decision to move on. That also speaks to me still the lack of staying power or lack of the ability for some of these 250 guys to make the jump. That, look at like Shane McElrath that did beam last night, but look at Shane's 250 career. And it's like, okay, Shane should have been able to trend, or there should have been a thought that Shane could have trended this direction, could be an option right now to replace Jason. Some of these 250 guys, it just has never worked out, so we just keep defaulting. I'm not a huge fan, insanity doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. I'm Cowie. Go get Justin Cooper. Nothing against Anderson. It's just, if you continue to spin like this many years into working together, what's going to make the next year different, the year after different? I don't know. That's why I want to know if there's something else going on. Please, if there's something else going on, admit it. Say it, because right now I'm just not on the ship of continuing this relationship.
Also, worth mentioning from the 450 class that Joey Savacci punctured a lung and broke some ribs, but I don't think he will be out for too long. So that's positive, I guess. It did look quite gnarly for a moment there. And actually, speaking of that, I meant to ask Chase this. I felt like when Joey went down, I felt like that was where Chase really lost the toe and lost whatever pace he had. I almost wonder if he felt as though there was going to be a red flag, because I definitely presumed it would be a red flag. So I almost wonder if Chase maybe anticipated that a little bit too much, or it definitely maybe I've imagined it, but it definitely felt like Chase was anticipating a red flag. I don't know.
I said I thought there was going to be one, but also you go back and look at the lap times based on when the cross flag came out. It got Chase. It did not get Webb, I believe, that lap, because Webb was like 4 seconds faster, 3 or 4 seconds faster the lap that Joey went down.
Yeah, so maybe it was just maybe it wasn't so much anticipating a red flag. It was more just at that point, Chase was like, well, this is over now, so I'm just going to settle for second.
I definitely think it killed. Not like he had a little bit of a drive, and then the gap had settled, but it definitely killed. It reset him back a decent distance.
Okay, so on to 250s, the 250 East-West Showdown. And not talked about going in, but the winner, Seth Hammaker, 1,456 days after his first win, which was in Texas on March the 13th. So actually almost 4 years to the day. superb ride. I think you could really see the benefits of what he's been doing at the dog pound with slowing down to go faster, technique work. A track like Indianapolis is where that really shines through, because I'm not sure Seth Hammaker pulls that off any other year. But also, don't look now, but he's deep in this title fight. And maybe we haven't been giving him enough credit, because he has been really good, except for Detroit, which there's a clear reason for, because he had food poisoning. Without that, maybe he's your red plate holder right now.
I mean, since the first round, I've been fairly high on Seth, and it sounds easy to say, but even some of his prior good rides, I was like, we still haven't seen the best of him yet. I had heard so much good about his offseason. I think an easy one to forget about, like, kind of even where Seth came from, like, indoors wise, you know, he was not a big name amateur, and he pretty much dominated Monster Cup the 1 year. I'm assuming that's what kind of got him on Team Green, and then he went through 2 years of shoulder injuries, all this stuff. Like, there's always been a big amount of belief behind Mitch and Cowie that this kid could get it done in Supercross, because they've definitely hung in. You know, I think like Cameron's injuries are a little more flashy, and it's like, man, they really hang in there with him. Seth, they really hung in there with him during some very rough times, especially at the beginning. But yeah, like you said, I think everything, also the moves he made and the investment he made in himself, because like one thing I don't think that's talked about enough, like Levi did it, but I think Levi with his position could command a little more money and support wise to do it. But like Seth, okay, you're out of California, you move all the way to the dog pound. He's been solid, you know, being based out of California, but you move back there, you have your facility fees. He took his personal race mechanic as his practice guy now, Jacob, so he took him on basically as a employee, you know, getting a place out there, etc. Like, the level of money $250 guy like him makes, that's pretty much your whole enchilada for the year, just spending on trying to be better. Like, now you were basically racing for performance incentives at this point.
And the fourth win of the year for Fox Racing. Bold, untamed, and pushing the boundaries of aesthetic, style, and design. Fox Racing's new Spring MX graphics, launching with Hello Future, disrupt the status quo and make no apologies for the interruption. Comprised of head-to-toe kits, plus a slew of head-turning men's and women's lifestyle pieces, its spirited graphic combined with dialed-in fit, comfort, and construction sends a message loud, clear, and confidently. The future belongs to those brave enough to answer the call. www.foxracing.com for more. Thank you to Fox Racing for their support of this podcast. We'll do this in a little bit, actually. First of all, I'm introducing a new segment on this podcast, which will be every week. And you know what? We're going to sponsor it by Motorex. So Motorex, known for high-quality engine oils, also has an entire line of clean, care, and lube products to keep your bike running strong and looking great. Maintenance made easy with race-proven Motorex clean, care, and lube products. And welcome, everyone, to the new segment of the Tom Vialle Apology Corner. Because we are all dicks. We are all dicks in every way. Because
that's going on SMXCom.
This 2-time MX2 world champion, 1-time Supercross East champion, we gave him 0 credit entering the season. And here we are, 4 rounds in. He has the red plate. And now I know a lot of you are probably going to say, Lewis, here you go. Time for you to gloat. Because you slowly started to edge this way. But no. Because I was in the bad place with everyone else. Yes, I was blessed enough to maybe escape a week or 2 sooner and make it to the apology corner. But now we're all in the apology corner. And you know, my brethren, we're one in the same here. We're a tribe, we're a group. And poor Tom Vialle, because he's a really good rider. And watching him at the weekend, he's a really good Supercross rider. And
no, he's not Luigi.
Just, I don't know. I don't know how we all did this so poorly and we did him so dirty. Because you know what? He is going to win this championship. He's my title favorite.
He did this to himself based off his performance at the opening 2 rounds.
No,
Let's
5-4?
Yeah. defending champ, didn't really have pace, it seemed like.
I don't know. 5-4.
No, he did this. It's such a...
No, but I'm talking even preseason. Preseason, no one had anything nice to say about his chances.
I don't think anybody... Like, okay, again, you've got RJ. It's so many big hitters on his coast that are exciting. Tom is not, like, has not put himself out there in a sense.
No, he is. He has now. I'm sorry. It's no.
No, we agree. I agree with you on the terms of the apology for like doubting him, but he also opened this box over the first 2 rounds of like, okay, before a bunch of these injuries, based on how he rode the first couple rounds, like, okay, Tom's on the back foot in this championship. Like, this may not be his to easily defend. A lot of things have changed in the last couple weeks.
It's over. He's winning this championship. He's winning this championship. It's done.
Lewis has given up. That's
no,
it.
it's not. I'm not giving up. I'm giving
have
in.
You started engraving? Have you started engraving the trophy personally yet?
Honestly,
wow.
Dare I say that I almost have no doubt that Tom Vialle.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Because you know what? I don't know how you beat him.
I would normally just go faster, but they're struggling.
But exactly, but like it's almost the Cooper Webb phenomenon.
Have you lost all hope in your brethren, Max Anstey?
Well, again, going back to what I said about Chase, I'm quite honest about everything. I feel like I never fucking play anything up just for whatever relationships or whatever. But Tom Vialle also. So after the race, very interesting interview that I have always wondered the answer to, as have other riders, and finally got to the bottom of it. So Vialle's part of the reason for the 5-4 at the start of the season, bad starts, which he admitted in Daytona, first 2 rounds starts sucked. You can see that for yourself. And actually, low-key, what you said about his first 2 rounds, he was very happy with them because his starts sucked, and he felt like his pace coming through was strong. He just hit a wall when it got time to like jump those big gaps to podium places. So once again, that's another banner in the apology corner. What was I saying? So his starts improved, Daytona and Indianapolis, and this is why. So if you've noticed, GP riders always start 1 foot up. All of them do. It's across the board, universal. And all American riders always start 2 feet down. Never known why. And I know that some riders have also been perplexed at this. Vialle, coming from GPs and where his starting was just superb, always started 1 foot up in American motocross supercross. But he said that in GPs, which is fact, they always grade right after the gate. Like after every moto session, immediately after the gate, the first 10 feet or whatever, is always prepped to perfection so there are never ruts. Whereas obviously in Supercross, that isn't the case at all. So he said he realised that the reason why everyone here starts 2 feet down is because you need that balance through the rut. Whereas because that isn't a concern in GPs, 1 foot up is the way to go because you can shift quicker. So there you have it. That's how Tom Vialle's starts have gotten better. That's the difference between GPs and America. And we've solved a worldwide conundrum this week. I did say to him, Tom, you've been here for 2 years. How have you only just figured this out? And he didn't really have a good reply to this because I was genuinely confused how he wouldn't figure this out sooner, to be honest. It seems like something that you would maybe latch onto quite quickly. But yeah, that's why. And I actually think that's very, very interesting. Certainly my standout.
If Prado, though, continues to start 1 foot and continues to be a starting monster, does that derail Tom's answer on why his start sucked at the beginning of the season?
Well, I guess we need to see. We need to see Jorge East Coast when the ruts are nastier and everything after the gate. That will be the true
test.
Yeah, the true test. But first, he must make it to East Coast.
We have to make. I would say we have to make it. We have to wait till 2026 to see if we get this opportunity.
I just want to sit here and talk about Tom though, because I feel so bad. I honestly feel bad. I feel terrible.
Wow, guilty.
Yep, I feel terrible.
Lewis.
Like.
I'm wondering what guilty Lewis looked like.
We're terrible at our jobs, as is everyone apparently, because no one had to.
Again, though, this isn't 1,000% on us.
I don't know. 5-4-2-2, superb scorecard.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know.
Sure, okay. How about Oh, you're not saying that. What's Max's scorecard?
Hold on. I have more Tom Vialle celebration. I just remembered.
We have to wait before I can move on.
In the sand, little Tom had this brilliant line. Tiny Tom. Tiny Tom. Tiny Tom, like Tiny Tim. What film's that from, Tiny Tim? I don't know. That is a thing. But Tiny Tom had a brilliant line where he was riding on the outside. He was like riding the edge of the track. So before the wall, everyone was going deep into the pocket. He was on the edge. I don't know if they showed this on TV. Honestly, I could have watched that every single lap. And you know what? Tom told Chase after the main event, and Chase was the only 450 guy doing it in the main event. So maybe, just maybe, Chase isn't that good, and it's all Tom. I don't know.
So, question, Lewis, if anybody's looking for Tom Vialle this week, can they find Tiny Tom in your pocket? Because it sure seems like you're.
I just don't know. I feel like we all owe him such an apology.
I will wait for the final round when you pick him up and carry him onto the podium for his championship trophy. I expect to see you carry him upon your shoulders, Tiny Tom.
I've never felt like so wrong about something in my life. But yeah, but honestly, that line in the sand was amazing. And also very Frenchman, very GP.
Are you talking about the outside, though, where they just would pop into the face low line? I saw a decent amount. He was riding like the crust of the side of the track. I don't really know how to describe it better than that. But yeah, he was essentially like right on the edge, and it was brilliant. He said that he didn't find it. He said he saw Justin Hill do it one lap in qualifying, and then he said he didn't do it in the heat race because he didn't know if anyone else would see it, and then busted it out in the main event. And honestly, you couldn't really tell with Tom because he was kind of a Tiny Tom because he was kind of all alone for the most part. But when Chase was battling with someone, whoever the other rider was, they doubled over the wall and Chase did the Tom line, as it's now trademarked, and it was so much quicker. So well done, Tom. It Webb the double? I know Webb did a couple times because you had to do it from the inside, but it depended if the roller would go away. Hymas did on his hot lap in time qualifying, didn't he?
I don't know.
I think that's what Chance did first time qualifying lap.
Well done, Tom. Great Tom. We're very sorry.
So, okay, let's circle back here a little bit. I gotta ask you about this because you're sitting here telling me, because what'd you say? What it's 5-4? What's Tom's score?
5-5-4-2. No, 5-4-2-2.
5-4-2-2. What is Max Anstey's score?
1-2-6-7. Was he 7th? Yeah, 1-2-6-7.
No love for Max. We're just done. That's it.
2 races out the top 5. We it's time for some tough love, but we'll get to Max. Actually, no, let's do Max now because this is quite confusing with East and West riders. East Coast title percentages. Hammaker has to be in there now, right? So what do? I presume your list is going to be RJ, Tom, has to be Tom, Max, Seth. But how do you split it with those 4? And the silence isn't great for radio.
I'm trying to think. 40% Tom, 30% Max, so that's 70. 20% Seth, 10% RJ.
Wait, repeat that? For some reason, I really struggle to follow that.
40% Tom.
Right.
30% Max. 20% to Seth, 10% to RJ.
Okay, why RJ so low?
Why RJ higher? Give me your counter.
I think RJ is still the fastest rider, potentially. Or maybe that's recency bias.
Have you told little Tom that recently?
You don't need to go fast to do big things. Honestly, I'm going to go to the Baker's factory this week and I'm going to say, Chase, just learn from Tiny Tom.
That's a lie. You've had so many invites there and you don't go.
But no, RJ, honestly, I said this to RJ after the race, and maybe it was an over-exaggeration. Maybe one of the better rides of his career.
That's actually true. I think the first time he popped up on scoring, he was 15th or 16th. And what did we do? Come back all the way to 4th?
Yes.
Yeah. No, he especially East-West shootout being a deeper field in a sense, very, very impressive ride.
Yeah, incredible. And then add in Daytona win and add in, I didn't see this incredibly, and I'm not sure that anyone has because I've not seen it on Instagram or anything, but RJ said after the race that on the very last lap of one of the qualification sessions, he had a massive crash, went flying off the track onto the concrete, landed on his leg so bad that kind of jacked his back up and said that when he got off the bike after the main event, he couldn't really stand up. by all accounts, this crash was like horrific and a miracle that he managed to get up. So that makes the ride even more impressive if he wasn't at 100%.
I hate to say it, the reason most people don't register that is because it is RJ.
Well, also, does that play
It would
into...
take RJ losing a limb to not race a main event at this point.
Does that play into... Okay, I presume you didn't know about that crash until now?
Nope. Again,
okay.
nobody,
but
it's RJ.
does that, maybe not that crash specifically, but the vibe of that, does that play into your 10%? Is that at all a factor for you? That you're like, I don't know if I can count on him?
I'll go fit. Well, yes, a little bit, because we're still... Like, it was interesting to hear RJ at the press conference for opening round of East talk about himself and Tom as the only two people in this class that knew how to get it done and how to be there on the right nights and what it takes to rise the occasion, things of that nature. I'm still worried about RJ based on the first round and that and other things. Like, there's only so many big moments we can have.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. But then again, maybe he can have unlimited because he finished fourth with a great ride and probably should have, could have won with a better start.
And maybe I'm not recency bias, but just flashing back to the end of last year. It's like, okay, last year's championship was between him and Levi. They both kept having moments. Putting him up against Vialle and Hammaker, who are all in this right now, I think that's why my chances are a little lower. If it was, head to head against just running down, maybe like Tom, it would be a little different, opinion wise. But let's see how it fleshes out the next couple rounds. As Kitchen mentioned, Daytona Saturday before he got hurt. East-West shootouts do make this interesting. I'm still keeping a bit reserved until we get through the next one to see where that scatters each coast coming into the last stretch of the season.
My title percentages, and this is actually really hard, to be honest, isn't it? I mean, maybe because we're only 4 rounds in, but this really does feel, as much as I joked about the Tom stuff, this does feel wide open still. I'm going to go...
It was a lock. I thought you started inscribing that trophy.
I'm going to go 50 Tom.
Okay.
No, that's too high.
That's going to give you very little room left.
I'm going to give 40 to Tom.
Same as me.
You know what? I'm going to be bold. I'm going to go 40 to Tom, 30 to RJ, 30 to Max.
So you just eliminate... So Seth is out.
Yeah, I don't want to do that, but I feel like in the interest of being true to the listeners and going with my gut and trying to not just play favorites, that's where I'm at. Like I do, I don't realistically with Seth's history.
Yeah,
he's the least reliable.
He is. Seth is recency bias. Again, I said that about RJ. Comment in the press conference, but RJ is also right. Him and Tom are the only two that have gone the distance. So no matter what, RJ has to be a decent consideration in this because he's been able to get it done. Max's is off of the first 2 rounds performance, and still, even though he's had not great last 2 races, the speed is there for Max to win on any given night. I don't know if I can quite say the same about like Seth. Don't get me wrong, Seth just won. Of the top 4 in that conversation, would you agree with me? Like on any given night, Max can win. On any given night, RJ can win. On any given night, Tom can hole shot and get a second. I can't say on any given night Seth can win. Like Seth can win, but I don't feel that way every single round he shows up to.
I agree, but I do feel obliged now to go back and look into Detroit and Tampa for him. Well, maybe not Detroit, but look into Tampa for him in a little more detail. Like I want to now, with this new information, I want to re-understand how he got the finish he did. Was it just a bad start? How were his lap times? I want to look at that with a fresh set of eyes now, a fresh perspective.
I talked to him after Tampa, and a big one he said Tampa is he was very much just letting, like, first round, let chaos ensue. He had very much a vibe of like, it's fine. I just sat back and let things happen. Like he didn't seem to have a lot of emphasis on, I was trying to be up there. It was just kind of like, get my feet wet again. Just let things happen was kind of his attitude when I talked to him after Tampa.
Let's talk about Max and then we'll go back to the top and kind of do the West Coast side of things. It wasn't a great day at all. In qualifying, I believe he was second in the second East timed session. I can't remember where that put him overall. But if you watched closely, he did 1 good lap. every other lap was kind of a bust. So that lap was not a flash in the pan, but that was kind of the only example of it. It was a struggle, a lot of mistakes, and it just wasn't there. And then in the main event, he looked flat. So I don't know. I think he needs more intensity. I think that would be a point of consideration. I think he needs some time off as well, because we didn't really play up to it too much last week, but he did have a gnarly crash in Daytona press day. And truth be told, it was kind of exactly what happened to Levi in the main event. Just Max managed to get out of it without injury. So
there he got slammed into that wall at Daytona.
And maybe I don't know if I'm now sharing too much, but when I spoke to him on Friday, he said he still was quite stiff and a bit awkward from it. So maybe the weekend off does him a world of good. I would hope that this week, and I haven't spoken to him yet, but I would hope that he's going to take a couple of days off and really work intensity on the other days. That would be, I think those are the two pressing matters. But yeah, it comes back to recency bias, doesn't it? If you look at Daytona and Indy, then yeah, you're likely to be quite down on Max. But then if you allow yourself to remember Tampa and Detroit, then you're going to be quite high on Max. But it does seem that no matter the result across these first 4 rounds, it seems like he has his pace, and that's his pace. Like, in Detroit, he was incredible. Best ride of his career, maybe. But that was just his pace. It just so happened that his pace, his consistent pace, was so much better. It wasn't like, oh my God, this guy is pushing and riding the edge. So I feel like almost he needs to find that edge on nights like Indy where it isn't quite there. I don't know. That's just my perspective on it. Going back to the top now with Haiden in 3rd place, he was doing that quad after the tunnel and said to me that when he cased it in the main event, he cased it so hard that his gearbox got fucked up and his gears were different or a bit messed up afterwards. Never heard anyone say this before, so okay.
Might have landed on the... it's a little uncommon, but like going back to my team, I had a rider case something and land on the shifter when they cased it, and it basically blew a bunch of teeth off of a gear ratio, was feeding metal through. Like, bike still ran, but there was like weirdness with the shifting and stuff like that. So very like, in a sense, sounds like a weird excuse, but falls in the very plausible category to me. I've seen it happen.
Yeah, okay. But still, great ride. He was honestly really good all day. His starts were better. Hayden's going to win this championship. This one is done. All jokes aside, with Tom in 250 East, the West Coast is very done for me. Like, if I'm going percentages of that, I'm doing 90 Hayden and 10 Juju.
Yeah, I don't even know if I'd go with that. Like I said, Juju's is just, I guess, he came into the race not even having ridden since Arlington, and it shows Juju's championship fight has been a little bit derailed. Yeah, especially the East-West shootouts being at East tracks, like Hayden's experience the last 2 seasons riding East, it didn't shock me. I coming into that, I kind of thought of like Juju's pretty much West Coast boy, only rides SoCal. I didn't have a ton of faith, regardless of the shoulder injury, that he'd be able to match Haiden in those conditions.
Yeah, and Haiden also, even if Juju was healthy now, Haiden has certainly taken a massive step from where he was through the first 4 rounds. So that, I don't know how Juju shapes up to this Haiden anyway, even if he's healthy. But yeah, and similar to RJ, Cole Davies had an incredible ride that will maybe get overlooked, but he went down in the sand early and he was absolutely ripping coming through the pack. He was 16th on lap 2 and came back to 5th, which for a rookie who wasn't even meant to race pro this year, I think that underlines his potential and his greatness. But I do feel like we're now in the stage where a win is almost overdue. Maybe.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we go back. What's our next West round? We go back for Seattle.
Yeah.
Seattle, and then we have, after Seattle, another East-West, and then Denver. Are those his only 2 standard West rounds?
Yes.
Here's the weird one. It always falls in awkwardness. I could see his first win actually coming in East-West shootout over his own West Coast series.
Well, I think I find myself now getting a bit frustrated with the mistakes because obviously after Glendale, he could have, should have, would have won, but crashed in the final main event. Then Arlington, we were all full of hype, and it was just a very messy night for him. And then come Indy, he again has the capability and throws it away. So if anything, it feels like the rookie mistakes are coming out more with this newfound speed. But I find myself, because we're now past the super, super, super green phase, which is a bit harsh to say because we are still only round 6 of his career.
Yeah.
6 of his career. So he's still allowed those mistakes, but I just feel like I feel like this could happen and should have happened maybe already based on how good and fast he is.
Yeah, I think one shocking one for me to say is not that, Haiden is that much older, but Haiden falls into the category of a little bit more generational in talent. And I mean, it's pandering back a little bit towards Cole, but like wasn't meant to race pro this year, kind of rushed into it to be performing where he is. Yes, the mistakes are frustrating, but also it's like, okay, Haiden leaves this coast, RJ moves up, all these guys, like Cole's second year is going to be potentially even without winning a race this year, depending on who he lines up against next year, like Cole could be considered a title contender.
100%.
Already in year 2, but even without a win. So I don't know. I agree with you. Like the mistakes are frustrating. If he doesn't get a win this season, is it a disappointment? Yes, but it does. I'm just, by the time we get to racing next year, it's kind of out of frame, out of mind. Like, yeah, he still has to get his first win if he doesn't this year. But in the same breath, it's like, okay, he's probably a title contender on whatever coast he's racing.
Looking at the results, we all expected the East to dominate. But what is your general feeling, East versus West, with the way it's shaked out?
Slight nod to East, but interesting because I believe we had a 5-5 split for the top 10. Correct me if I'm wrong. 5 West, 5 East riders. I believe, looking back, what do we have? A little more East in the top, like 15 per split, or no?
Yeah, because from 10 to 14 is all East.
Yeah, which doesn't shock me because I've said about coasts like top 3 to top 3 on each coast, top 4 to top 4 on each coast to me are similar level of skill, speed, everything like what they can do on any given night. It's from there on back. Like East is deeper for me from like 6th to 15th. So not shocking. 5 to 5 split. End up being maybe a little bit more even than I thought, but giving the nod to the East Coast guys.
Yeah, I think that's my takeaway. I'm surprised how much West is filtered into the top 8 or top 9.
That kind of surprised. Okay, it's Joel. Again, that gives me some props to like a Davies to come through as far as he did against some of these. Juju's a little farther back, dealing with the shoulder injury. That mix, when I sit here back up and look at it, isn't the most shocking thing ever. Actually, Joe in 6, considering how good certain points of the night were, I was almost surprised that he slipped back to there.
The credit to the East Coast is the fact that the top 2 were Seth and Tom, who, by all accounts, were not the 2 strongest, most spectacular East Coast riders. So that points to the East Coast depth. The fact that they can put those 2 riders above Haiden says a lot. That East Coast has a lot more to offer as far as variety.
Speaking of the whole just East-West conversation in general, I know every year this just continues to be talked about, and East versus the whole split region in general. I don't know, having more East-West shootouts, having them earlier, not as massive earlier, but just having them a little bit earlier in the season to taste test off of. I've always been a proponent of, hey, split regions is good. Not forcing these kids to race long seasons. They can't make it through it. Gives more rides because somebody like Stars is going to hire 6 people if it's all one. Damn, though, when you get through these nights, doesn't it make you wish we had this all season long?
Yes.
Do you appreciate it for just it's special that we get it, or does it make you just want to hit your head against the wall and say, why don't we have this every single round?
No, I want it every single round. This is great. Incredible. Imagine the variety we would get week to week on who's in the top 5. It would be absurd. It would be the most competitive, spectacular race series on the planet, without doubt. Speaking of Joe, though, he was better, and he should now really be able to start to ramp up his prep, his midweek training. So I would expect an even better Joe when we get to Seattle. Joe, of course, user of Yoshimura, so you know that he can rely on a lot of power, as can a lot of riders around the world, including you. If you head to yoshimura-rd.com and figure out all that they have to offer for your motorcycle. And next weekend, they will be back into MXGP contention with Tim Geiser. And in fact, now that I think about that, we had more Yoshimura success over the weekend because at the International Italian Championship, Valerio Lata went 1-1 with Yoshimura Power. So there you have it. Everywhere you look, Yoshimura success. The only other points from the East-West Showdown that I wanted to mention is, despite the fact that it looked terrible, Triumph took a lot of positives from Austin Faulkner's night and feel like it was a massive step forward and, in a sense, the breakthrough that they needed. So that's good that they feel that way, but it was very close to being a absolute disaster.
They feel that way, but it still kind of looks like a disaster.
I mean, maybe that just points to the fact that they really are looking for whatever they can get, you know? Like, it was so bleak prior to this that any positive is substantial. And then also, I wanted to give a tip of the hat to Gavin Towers, who from the very first practice appeared to be much more aggressive, much more into it, much more reminiscent of the rider we saw in Futures last year. So Towers seems to have turned some sort of a corner in some way, and I don't really know what caused that, but definitely a million times better.
Anyone you were shocked to not see make the East-West main?
Honestly, no. I don't think so. I'm just going to put up the LCQ results in case there's someone who I missed. I mean, Parker Ross has been great and certainly was good enough to get in, but I'm not completely shocked. Henry Miller rode amazing in the LCQ, but then if you tell me that Henry Miller doesn't make the main, I'm not reading into that too much. So no, not at all. What about you?
About the same.
Oh, okay.
But Ross was the only one. He had been trending in a good direction. Like, I expected it, also to your nod to like Towers, I would have expected Ross to get in over Towers.
Right. Are we done? Final thoughts?
We're done. Final thoughts.
Well, let me tell you this, actually.
Look for you carrying around little Tom next
Tom.
when we come back from the break.
So we do have a weekend off this weekend, but this week there will be an episode of the MXGP podcast despite no race, because we are doing the 2015... What did I call that? Now you know. So we are going to recap the 2015 season because it's 10 years... Well, on Saturday it was 10 years to the day that Villapoto won his only GP, so it seemed like a good time to do that. So that will go up towards the end of the week. Some off-season content. Oh, sorry, not off-season. We're not there yet. Jesus. Some off-weekend content, which should be interesting for you all, because my co-host on that, Adam Wheeler, was deep involved in the RV situation because he was working for Monster at the time. So he was really in there as to like the inner workings and what was going on and putting RV in places and making RV do stuff. So that should be very interesting. And then although no wow, I'm really screwing up at the end of this podcast. Although no Supercross this weekend, there will be an MXGP round. So next week, no this podcast, but there will be an MXGP review. So there is that. And then back to Seattle, where normal progress will be resumed. But any final thoughts?
Nope. Just give me another East-West Showdown, please. Immediately.
So when is the next one?
Is it Philly or Pittsburgh?
Those two things are the same to me.
I'm
really
get them backward every single time. Pittsburgh is the second of the two. I believe it is Philly. I'm probably wrong, though. It's probably Pittsburgh.
I actually don't know how you...
I feel like it's Philly. I swear to God, it's Philly because Pittsburgh
It's
is
Philly.
too close. Yep.
So actually,
There's
only
this one normal round for each coast, and then another East Showdown.
no,
East Coast Showdown.
two
sorry.
normal East Coast rounds, one normal West Coast round, then a showdown. And of course, Birmingham will be a triple crown, so look out for that as well. Right, thank you to Yamaha Motor USA, Yoshimura Decal Works, Motorex, and thank you to Motorex for bringing us for Tom Vialle Apology Corner, and Fox Racing for all of their support of this podcast show. We will see you in 2 weeks to discuss Seattle and all that has happened at round 10 of Monster Energy AMA Supercross. Thank you for watching and listening, and we will be back real soon.